everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Southern Woke.
I'm Marina.
And I'm Kaylin. And y'all, I'm just gonna forewarn y'all, Marina's already emotional for this one.
I know, like it's such a 180 from my mood last week, last week, but I'm gonna get through it.
She's got her comfort blanket out here, she's ready to go.
Yes. But before we start, we want to give a shout out. Kaylin.
Y'all, shout out to Columbus, Ohio for being the city that listens to our podcast the most. I don't know what y'all are doing
last
over there.
year.
Oh yeah, from all last year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not know we had that many viewers in Ohio.
Yeah, what are y'all doing up there in Columbus? Reach out to us.
Yeah, like, comment on our next Instagram post and let us know, hey, that's me listening. Yeah.
Alright, y'all. So today we're going to talk about something that we've been talking about a little bit before our episodes, kind of keeping everybody updated, but we really wanted to dedicate an entire episode to it.
Yeah. It's the Gabby Petito case. And I didn't think I would actually be like this shaky about it. Like, not shaky, like I'm just like sad about it. Like it's makes me mad too.
So I think one of the reasons why this case is so emotional is it kind of reminds me of like the Chris Watts case where she had so much on video where you really got to know like her and the family so well. And this is kind of the same way because so much of it's on video. Oh, a cat.
Yeah, cat things.
Cat things. But since so much of it was on video, you really got to know them and their personalities. It makes it that much more personal.
I know, that makes it scary because, like, going forward in crime, in time, it's going to be like that for a lot of cases because we document everything these days.
I was thinking that same thing.
So it's going to be so much easier to go to someone's YouTube channel or Instagram and just see their life and then know that it ended tragically. But, okay, so today we're going to just kind of go through the timeline of what happened, and at the end, I guess we'll just talk about the theories of what exactly happened, because we still don't really know. Oh my lord. Kaylin almost,
I did spill coffee all over myself. We'll be right back, guys. Alright, maybe if I can keep my coffee in the cup this time, we won't have any more interruptions.
Well, you almost spilled all of it, so
yeah,
we won't have the option for long. Anyways, okay, so let's get into this. So, Gabby Petito, like a lot of the people we talk about, had a birthday right next to mine, which makes me feel very uneasy. I don't want to end up like one of these stories. But anyways, Gabby was born on March 19th, 1999 in Long Island, New York. She had a very loving family, including her dad, Joe, and stepmom, Tara Petito, who have two other kids together, and her mom, Nicole Schmidt, and Jim, her stepdad, who had one other son. And Gabby was always a sweet, caring, adventurous, and creative person, and had recently been making van life content. And she had an appreciation for nature and wanted to see as much of the world as she could. She met Brian Laundrie in high school, but they didn't date then. But they had lots in common, like loving nature and being outside. And they both graduated from Bayport Blue Point High School in 2017. I have a problem with that high school name. That's too much. Bayport Blue Point High School, like...
Yeah, there's two B words right next to each other. You can't do that.
No, that's a sin, first of all. Maybe that's why this was cursed from the get-go. Anyways, I'm just trying to keep it light, because my mind is really sad. Okay, so they started dating for realsies in March 2019 when they went on a sushi date on the beach and hit it off. Brian was an environmentalist, a minimalist, and a barefoot hiker. Yo.
Why are you hiking barefoot? What's the point in that?
Because he was wanting to be closer to nature.
That's too much.
Be one
You're already
with the
close
land.
enough to nature when you're hiking in shoes. Sorry, hiking enthusiasts out there.
I don't know, and it's also very dangerous, like you could step on anything, but then like the point is to like barefoot hike to build up the toughness of your feet. I don't know.
Oh, so we had some nasty feet.
Okay. So immediately started dating and began traveling, and they went on a cross-country road trip in a little bitty Nissan Sentra and continued taking smaller trips afterwards, and eventually they wanted to take it to the next level and get into van life. In 2020, they began working on their white 2012 Ford Transit van, and they began a YouTube channel and named it Nomadic Static. But she mostly posted on her Instagram for this time being, because I think there's only like one vlog on their YouTube channel. We'll get there, it's on the timeline.
Also, around the time that they are doing this van, on July 2nd of 2020, they get engaged.
Oh yeah. I remember looking at the picture. She posted on Instagram like their first date picture from that sushi date and said, "Here's a picture from our first date because I have so much love for you. Brian asked me to marry him and I said yes. Brian, you make my life feel unreal and every day is such a dream with you." She loved him so much. Dude, I had so many typos in my notes where Brian is brain. So it says Brain's parents. But Brian's parents are Chris and Roberta Laundrie. And they were thrilled about their engagement and allowed Gabby to move in with them in their home in Northport, Florida. Also to note, after she moved there, also her dad, was it her dad? Yeah, her dad and the stepmom moved to Florida as well to be close to her. So their big road trip began in June of 2021. It began in New York on June 17th when they went to see her brother graduate from high school. And the real trip began July 2nd. They planned for it to last 4 months, and they wanted to visit as many national parks in Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah that they could, with the final stop near Portland at a friend's place around Halloween. Gabby promised her family she would keep them updated as much as possible, and she did that with no less than like 3 FaceTime calls or regular phone calls and texts a week. At this point, Gabby had 100,000 followers on Instagram, and she started working on their website blog, nomadicstatic.com, on the trip. So, July 4th, the first post of the trip was tagged at Monument Rocks in Kansas, and both Gabby and Brian posted separate pictures that day. And then July 8th, Gabby posted a pic in Colorado Springs. July 10th and 11th, Gabby posted from Colorado's Great Sand Dune National Park and Reserve, and Brian also posted here, and this was their last day in Colorado. July 16th through 18th, she posted from Utah's New Zion National Park, and Brian posted on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. July 21st and 22nd, she posted from Utah's Bryce Canyon National Park, and Brian posted here the 23rd and 24th. So the beginning of this trip is very consistent, very smooth. I guess they weren't arguing yet. July 26th, Gabby posted from Monroe Springs in Utah. And then July 29th, Brian posted from Canyonlands National Park, and Gabby posted on July 30 and 31st. Then we get to August 12th. There is a big gap in Gabby's postings, which, I guess this last one, was this the last post in Arches National Park?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, August 12th, there was a call to 911 to report what a man described as a domestic dispute. He reports he was driving and saw a gentleman slapping a girl, and stated he stopped driving and watched the male and female run up and down the sidewalk where the guy proceeded to hit her. He stated they hopped in the van and drove off. He took a picture of the license plate and describes the vehicle and the license plate information to the 911 operator. Then Officer Robbins is driving, and he stops a vehicle that was going 45 and a 15 on the road that goes into Arches National Park after he observed the van cross over the double yellow line and crosses back over and hits the curb on the passenger side. He stops the vehicle and has the female exit the vehicle, separating them. From this point forward, Gabby and Brian never speak to each other while law enforcement is in contact. So here, which actually this was released today or yesterday, the investigation into the officer interaction, and I read like the first lot of pages, so a lot of this is like directly from that. Whew! This is where I'm gonna get heated.
So, yes, it's just plain and simple, the police officers did not handle it the way that they should. And I actually saw the chief of the Moab, is the sheriff's department, police department?
I don't know.
Anyway, he actually even came out with a statement and he said that there is no excuses for this and there is no explanation for it. So they even admit that they messed up.
Yeah, like, as I was reading in the report, they do admit that some of the stuff was wrong, and they had a lot of excuses to say that what was wrong was right also, but we'll get there. Okay, so Brian stated that it had been a long day and their little squabble started earlier this day when they were at the coffee shop. Brian stated they had been there for so long, from about 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Brian said when they got back to the van, there was a little dirt at the back of the van. Brian said he moved their food around and there was a little disagreement there. When asked about the disagreement, Brian stated it wasn't much of a disagreement, but went on to say he had dirty feet. We assume that. And said there were little things, relationship things, they were arguing about. Brian stated Gabby was working on her website or blog and said he gave her time. Brian said they had a nice morning, but Gabby got worked up as they were trying to get their day going. Brian said he tried to distance himself from Gabby by locking up the van and walking away. He said while doing this, he suggested to Gabby that they both take a breather, and he said he felt this was the only way for them to calm down, but Gabby was getting worked up. Brian said Gabby had her phone and was trying to get the keys from him, and that's when he was pushing her away. Brian said he knew he shouldn't push her, but stated he was just trying to push her away. They needed to take a minute, step back, and breathe. Brian said he had the keys because he didn't want Gabby to go anywhere, as he didn't have his phone. Then added he doesn't really have a phone and was worried about her leaving without him and being left alone. Later on, Brian would provide Officer Robbins his phone number and confirm the number by looking at his cell phone. Which is something I don't understand about this part. And then at the end of this all, when they had to separate, Gabby told the officer, tell him not to forget his phone charger. So, why you lying? Okay. Where did I leave off on my rant? Okay. This was interesting. Okay. Brian said it was at that time Gabby was trying to get the keys from him, where he demonstrated pushing her away and said that this is when she hit me. Brian said this was when he got really loud and stated that was what probably drew everyone's attention. Brian said he was yelling back up, get away, and was trying to make her calm down and pointed out to Gabby that everyone's watching. Brian said the injury near his eye was from Gabby's phone. And Brian said Gabby had jumped on him and was swinging when he pushed her. Brian stated Gabby also wore rings, and the combination of the phone, her rings, and her nails are what likely caused his injuries. Park Ranger Ryan points out scratches on the left side of Brian's neck, left side of his nose, a scratch near the center of his face, and a bruise and bleeding on the right side of his head. Officer Robbins finds an additional injury on Brian's right bicep, tricep area. Brian said he was not in any pain and that he wasn't complaining. When asked about medication, Brian said he doesn't take any. When asked if Gabby takes medication, he replies while chuckling and smirking, "She's just crazy." Brian then immediately takes back that comment by saying he's kidding. While still in the vehicle, Gabby is asked why she was crying. Gabby stated they have been fighting that morning, and if there's been personal issues. She said, I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry. Once separated, Gabby said that she had been having a very stressful morning and said that she was trying to get work done and was apologizing to Brian after she had thrown a bunch of stuff in the back of the van. Gabby said she gets so stressed out and has OCD. She further stated she has a mean attitude but was not trying to be mean about straightening things up. Brian got frustrated with her and locked her out of the van and told her to go take a breather. Gabby said she wanted to get going and said they were out of water and they were going to the park to refill their water. Gabby said that she was trying to start a blog and was building her website and has been stressed about it, and said Brian doesn't really believe that she can do any of it, which was upsetting to her. When asked why Brian wouldn't let her in the van, Gabby said Brian told her she needed to calm down. Gabby said she was perfectly calm and stated Brian really stresses her out and said it was a rough morning. Gabby said Brian walked away to take a breather, but she didn't want to. And she wanted to sit in the van because all her stuff was in there. This is a lot. And I concised it a lot.
I think it's important to understand like what their testimonies and how they said everything went down.
Yeah, it is very important. That's why this is probably the most detailed part of everything. But okay, Gabby initially said she wasn't sure what caused the injury on her left cheek and left arm, stating the incident happened really fast. Gabby said she was trying to get back in the van and said Brian's backpack was what got her. Gabby was told about witnesses that reported Brian had hit her, and she responded, "To be honest, I definitely hit him first." Gabby said she had slapped Brian a couple of times and Brian kept telling her to shut up, and she hit Brian as she was trying to get him to stop telling her to calm down. Gabby said Brian reacted by grabbing her arm so she wouldn't slap him. Officer Pratt asked if Brian only grabbed her, and she said yeah. He then asked, "Did he hit you though?" Gabby said, "I guess, but I hit him first." Gabby said Brian grabbed my face and she motioned like you ever see parents get really angry at their kids in the supermarket and they just grab their
exactly
but with a grown man doing that to a grown woman, no ma'am.
When I saw it, I was thinking, I was like, could you imagine?
Dude,
anybody touched me in any way like that?
No, Jeremiah would never, and if he ever did, there would be a serious problem.
Yeah.
We would not just get in the van and go. But that's what happens in these domestic abuse situations. So, Gabby said he didn't punch me in the face. She said he grabbed her face and she could feel a cut on her left cheek, and when she touched it, it burned. When asked about the van hitting the curb, Gabby said I hit him and stated that was the reason Brian hit the curb. Gabby stated she was hitting Brian while he was driving, but not a lot. She said it didn't last long and said she saw the police car behind them and she demonstrated throwing a punch. She said it was when she saw the police lights that she hit Brian and said, "You're an idiot." But she is. Gabby, you're not wrong. Gabby said she did not touch the steering wheel, but only for a second just saw the lights come on. She was asked again if she ever touched the steering wheel, and Gabby said, no, I didn't touch the steering wheel at all. When asked if Brian is patient with her, Gabby said, yeah, it just makes me upset. I know he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot because I have a lot of anxiety, and he definitely has anxiety too. Officer Pratt called one of the witnesses and the witness stated that he observed Brian and Gabby involved in a dispute. Stated from what he could tell, it appeared that at one point they may have been fighting over a phone and thought it may have been Gabby's phone. Reported Brian was trying to keep Gabby from getting into the van, and Brian was sitting in the driver's seat while Gabby was trying to get into the van through the driver's side door. Said Gabby hit Brian a few times in the arm or face while trying to get into the vehicle, and she forced her way over Brian's lap through the door and got into the passenger seat. He heard Gabby tell Brian, "Why do you have to be so mean?" and stated he wasn't sure if it was play fighting, stating Gabby's punches were nothing like slugs to the face, but felt something was off and he had a weird vibe. He said he wasn't sure how serious the incident was, but to him it seemed like Brian was trying to leave Gabby and possibly take her cell phone. The officer asked if he ever saw Brian strike Gabby. He hesitated in his answer and stated he maybe saw a push or a shove, but nothing like a full-on punch to the face or anything. The officer asked if he could tell if the push or shove was aggressive or defensive, and the witness wasn't sure, stating it was a good question and wasn't entirely sure what exactly was going on. He said it appeared to him that Brian was trying to close off the passenger side of the vehicle and close things up. Said Brian put a backpack or something on the back of the vehicle. So then Gabby was begging and crying not to be separated from Brian and asked if she could just get a ticket, but the cop said they must do this, and the cop calls a supervisor but doesn't even tell him the whole truth. Like, I'm pretty sure he gets on the phone and was like, so we have this blonde girl, she's like 100 pounds soaking wet, and she hit her boyfriend a few times, and I'm just wondering if, like, the law is being lost in this one. Like, do I have to cite her or arrest her?
So did you actually see the video with that?
Yeah, I'm just, like, summarizing.
Okay, because I thought that was, like, he started off going down the right path, and then he failed at the end. Because basically what he was saying is there's, like, this law where if, like, there is a domestic violence case, then you have to separate the two, at least for the night.
Yeah.
And you, honestly, you need to do something about it, because so many times, like, girls will get beat or whatever, and then when the cops actually end up showing up, they end up telling the girl, or the girl says, like, oh no, it's just a fight, like, I still want to be with him, don't press charges. Like, by law, they kind of, like, have to do something about it. But what he was saying was, he was, like, kind of saying that it was Brian that was getting beat. It was more of him saying, like, she's only 150 pounds, soaking wet, like, she couldn't hurt him at all, so, like, there's no reason for us to follow this law and this procedure, because it kind of painted Brian out to be the victim. So, like, I don't know, he kind of started off saying what the code was and then not following it.
Yeah, because in their code, it does state that the primary aggressor has to get cited or arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And from the get-go, they just, even though the initial call was a man slapping a woman, they get there and automatically start assuming that Gabby is the primary aggressor.
And it's kind of because she said that she started, but I think she was just trying to, like, cover for him, because once again, she didn't want to get him in trouble.
She was covering for him so much so, and he was trying to make her seem crazy on the low to cover his ass.
It's just a mess, but that's why that law is there, because the girl's obviously most of the time going to want to take up for her fiance and not get him in trouble, so that law's there to prevent that, but they didn't follow that, of course.
Of course. So, Officer Robbins advised Gabby that she was not going to get charged with anything, but stated he had to separate her and Brian for the night. Oh wait, I skipped the most important part, because on that phone call with Officer Pratt and the supervisor, Officer Pratt really said, and I quote, "It's too many times women who are at risk go back to their abuser. They just wanted them to stop, and they don't want to have to be separated. They don't want them to be charged, and they don't want them to..." Oh, and it gets worse and worse, and then they're killed.
That's exactly what I was just saying, so he knew the reason. He basically said the law is here to prevent this, but we're going to do it anyway, because this is the exception, when it absolutely was not.
Yep. Okay, so back to the officer telling Gabby she's not getting charged, but they had to separate them for the night. He tells Brian the same thing, stating that since Gabby did not intend to hurt him, technically speaking, it does not fit the letter of the code, so that's how they got around it. And he was not charging Gabby with domestic violence assault. Officer Robbins advises them both to not have any contact with each other until the following day, and allows Gabby to take custody of the van, which they assumed this whole time was Brian's, but it's in her name. And it's like, oh, they let her take the van. No, that's her van. She's going to take that. But anyways.
Also, if you've, like, kept up with this case at all, this is probably, like, the video and the image that you're used to seeing is Gabby sitting in the back of this cop car. And then you get to see Brian outside with all the officers, like, laughing and joking. Like, a bunch of guys, like, all saying, like, oh, she's crazy. And he's literally laughing with them, y'all. It's sickening.
He's literally sitting on the curb, and he's like, can I, like, go stand in the shade? I'm bald. It burns. Like...
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to watch, but...
Okay. So, and also, did they not ask for, like, license and registration when they pulled them over? Because I did not see that at all.
Yeah.
At all. Then they would have known right off the bat, why is this man driving this woman's van? And they would have, like, maybe that would have, like, triggered some more thought.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Officer Robbins then transports Brian to the Bowen Motel because Brian said he didn't have enough money to get a hotel room for the night to separate from her. So they took him in under like a domestic violence program and had to take pictures of his injuries and bring him to the motel. But turns out, I know for sure, he had over $200 at least. We'll get there. So Brian mentions to police that he doesn't have a phone, so he wouldn't leave her, but in the body cam footage, like I said, we saw that he clearly had a phone. And then Gabby was calling. Oh, never mind. Said that already too. Oopsies. According to the police, they were in love, engaged to be married, and desperately didn't want to see the other arrested. Her mom said at this time they actually weren't engaged anymore, and they decided they were too young to get married and went back to being just boyfriend and girlfriend. One officer noted Gabby showed signs of separation anxiety and was in a confused and emotional state and said he didn't think this was a domestic assault situation and classified it as a mental health crisis. The cops talked and determined, well, this is kind of out of order. I don't know how that happened because I was very strict about this. But they obviously determined Gabby to be the primary aggressor. They use that term so many times.
And it's because you do get to see the cops ask, like, did he hit you first? And she's like, no, I guess I hit him first. And so I guess that statement made her the primary aggressor. But once again, she was just trying to, like, stand up and make it sound like, oh, no, he wasn't beating me. It was because I was being stupid.
Yeah. And one of the quotes from one of the cops was, I can't tell if his push was aggressive or defensive against her. Unless Brian is screaming he did something to her and wants to go to jail, she looks like the primary aggressor and he's the victim.
Yeah.
So experts have seen this body cam footage and pointed out many red flags these cops didn't notice. John Walsh, who, if you don't know, is from America's Most Wanted, and has also caught 7 or 10 of America's Most Wanted? I don't know. I lose count. He was in a CNN interview, points out that the 911 caller said Brian was slapping her, so how do the cops get there and declare Brian the victim?
Yep.
He believes Gabby was terrorized by Brian not to tell the cops anything, and this looked like a classic domestic abuse case. There was also only one female officer on scene, National Park Service Ranger Melissa Hull. She was hoping that Gabby would feel comfortable talking with another woman. She encouraged her to reconsider her relationship, and she could tell that Gabby was anxious to be away from him, and Gabby hoped things would get better when they were back in Florida. So, do you have anything else you want to say about the body cam situation? Alright, so then the next day was Brian's last 2 Instagram posts. And I have these 2 captions quoted because they're interesting. So the first picture, the caption is, not a lot of biodegradable packaging for on-the-go food these days. That's why I stick with my melon rinds, apple cores, peach pits, and banana peels. Also, most melons contain around 90% water. Talk about hydration. Let's keep plastic water bottles off the trail, or better yet, off the planet.
Y'all, I am an advocate for not using water bottles. Ask all my friends, I'm so against that. But y'all, if anybody on my Instagram posted something with that caption, you're blocked on the spot. You're not following you.
It is a little annoying, that's for sure, especially when it's Brian. Ugh. And then the other one's even better. It says, humans are primates, great apes in fact, but I don't know how great we are as a species. Chimpanzees share 98.8% of their DNA, our closest living relative, but as I see it, every living creature is in some way our relative, even trees. Only 800 million years ago, animal cells started appearing on Earth, comprised of mainly the same parts and following the same functions as plant cells, requiring oxygen, solar energy, minerals, nutrients, and water. This tree, a Juniperus osteosperma was surviving in only inches of soil in an area of extreme heat and drought. I think our culture, our society has itself above all living creatures, creating needs purely to support destructive economic practices. This tree doesn't need an Apple Watch. It doesn't stream its favorite shows or have a microwave oven, pay health insurance, or drink grande iced caramel macchiatos. It's just a tree, but you rarely see geese riding jet skis or wearing designer clothing either. I think if we all want breathable air and drinkable water, we all need to learn how to live with less.
Are you telling me that was his Instagram caption? That entire thing was a caption on his Instagram?
Yes. Yes.
Is there not a character limit or something at some point? Because that was a novel.
No, but I think you had to scroll on that one.
You had to at least hit the little see more button to get more popping up. Okay, wait. Also, imagine being Gabby. You're on this long vacation in this small van with your boyfriend, and you know he is 100% sitting there, like, saying this stuff out loud, like, to her, these deep, meaningful things of life, and telling me, she's like, oh yeah, babe, that's the one, that's the caption. And he's definitely just, like, ranting about, like, these stupid, long...
Like, he is a narcissist.
Yes.
He thinks he is this elite human. Because, like, okay, there's this thing. So I feel like when people go on their spiritual journey, it's either authentic or, like, you know about the spiritual journey, but you're not there mentally yet, so you fake it. And it's annoying.
Yep.
And that's what he was.
He's, like, trying to sound so sophisticated and
like
poetic and...
philosopher. Oh my God. And also to note, Gabby wasn't in either of his posts. Like, up until this point, they maybe were, like, shown as a couple in either one of their page, but she wasn't in either one of these. It was literally just him in one picture, like, eating a melon in front of some rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. So, August 17th through 23rd, Brian flies to Florida, and later his attorney confirms that he flew home to Tampa from Salt Lake City on August 17th and flew back to Salt Lake City on August 23rd to rejoin Gabby. Brian flew home to obtain some items and empty and close the couple's storage unit to save money as they contemplated extending the road trip. He also says the couple paid for the flights together as they were sharing expenses. I still think it was very weird that Brian flew home.
I think so too, by himself, and like left her up there in Salt Lake City by herself.
Because Mr. Environmentalist, why would you just take an unnecessary plane trip and support those fuels?
I wonder if that would be more like cost or eco-friendly than like driving and putting all that. No way, but maybe.
Who knows? But still, it don't make sense.
It's sketch as hell that he just leaves her up there on their trip and flies back for 6 days. And
like,
they,
no way. And how would my boyfriend leave me in the middle of a national park for like a few days to go home to empty a storage unit?
And couldn't they not just like call their parents and say, hey, can you like close this out? Or can we call them or do something? He had to fly in person to close it.
He had 2 sets of parents there. 2 out of the 3 they had together.
There's like no way I'm on vacation. I'm going to fly back to close a storage unit. And you're paying more money. There's no way that storage unit costs them more than $200 a month. And that plane ticket definitely costs more than that. So like, something's weird about that.
I know. Just one of the very many weird things. So, on August 19th, while I guess Gabby is sitting in whatever state by herself, she posted a vlog to their YouTube channel. So y'all should definitely check that out. It's so sweet and pure, and you can actually see Gabby happy for a little bit until you find out what happens. And if you're like me, you'll cry, so beware. Anyways, the same day, Gabby posted a picture of inside of the van, like looking out. It's like her inside, and she's like looking at the scenery. And the caption was, okay, pay attention to this caption and how it sounds. Almost immediately after telling Brian how happy it made me to see that people were truly respectful of the park, I watched some guy leave his processed, pre-packaged plastic conglomerate of lunch garbage on the picnic table. Tell me that doesn't sound like Brian is poisoning her brain.
Yes, 100%.
I thought for a little bit like Brian posted that for sure, but apparently no, he was in Florida.
I guess I didn't really like look back at Gabby's other posts that much. Does she normally say stuff like that in her post?
Okay, no, it's very usually like girly captions with sparkle emojis and like I love you and like I love Earth, just like simple.
Yeah.
Not like trying to be a philosopher in her caption. Okay, moving on. Oh, also there was no location on this picture when each one before had a location. Like she was keeping people updated with where she was. And the terrain in the picture didn't exactly match the terrain of the Arches National Park, which was where her last tagged location was, where we would assume Brian left her. Because like I remember from the picture, it was very like green, like green scenery, but like in Arches National Park, it was like orange, like that red clay color. So, August 21st, her dad ordered them Uber Eats because they had a Wi-Fi outage, and they were staying in Salt Lake City, which also, I don't know, maybe it was just her that he ordered Uber Eats for, because according to the timeline, Brian's still in Florida at this time. So I guess she went to go stay at a hotel where her dad then ordered her Uber Eats, and she had a call with her mom, and she said they were leaving Utah and heading to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming and then to Yellowstone. And August 25th, so now Brian should be back, is back. It was Gabby's last Instagram post, which was a series of photos of her in front of a beautiful butterfly mural with a random mirror selfie at the end of the series of pictures with no location again. And the caption said, "Happy Halloween," which is weird because it's really early to say Happy Halloween. I don't even go that hard that early. But also the pictures seem older than what she would look like now, or like younger, I guess you would say. Her hair was shorter, and the kind of clothes she was wearing just did not look like road trip clothes. Like, it didn't seem from the other pictures that they were taking any like city days to go be out in the city and wear cute outfits.
Yeah.
It was all outdoors, so it didn't really match up. Also notable, the comments on some of her Instagram pictures were set to limited, and some of her posts were edited. On August 26th, Gabby's mom gets a text from her saying that they made it to Teton Park. Also on this day, there was the incident at a restaurant called Mary Piglet's in Jackson, Wyoming. Witnesses said that they saw the couple, and it was the last confirmed sighting of Gabby. A witness said Brian had gotten into an argument with multiple waitresses and stormed in and out of the building several times, and Gabby was inside crying and went outside and tried to get Brian to leave. Also, there was a TikTok girl that posted a video saying that like she was sitting right next to them that day, and it was pretty intense apparently.
I also saw somebody that worked at the restaurant came out and said that a lot of what the media's been saying about what happened at that restaurant isn't true, and that once again, I don't know if this has any validity to it, it's just a video I saw on YouTube, but she said that apparently Brian and Gabby had left without paying, and the waitress chased them down outside to get them to pay, and then they came back in, or anyway, they ended up paying outside of the restaurant, and they came back in like demanding their money back, and they wouldn't give them their money back and kicked them out of the restaurant. That's just a random video I saw once again. I don't know if it has any validity, but it was interesting.
Cause like one of the random videos I saw of this girl that's on my TV right now, cause her name's Christina Randall. She did like 15 to 20 videos on all this. And one of hers, I think they said that one of the people, like they tried to contact the manager of that restaurant, and they just denied that they were ever there. Mm-hmm. So it's very weird. There's a lot of little instances like that where people just deny what we know. In this case, it's weird. It's sus. Okay, also on August 26th, a man from Louisiana shared on TikTok that he was on a trip and was staying in Yellowstone and was at a bar and said there was a man sitting at the end of the bar alone. He was quiet but visibly annoyed because this guy and his friends at the other side of the bar were talking about politics and guns and like Republican shit that Brian probably wouldn't agree with. And Brian apparently made some kind of stupid Southerners or Republican comment. And the dude asked where he's from, and he said New York, and said his name is Brian. And the guy said, well, you picked a pretty random place. Like, what did you expect coming out here? We'd be talking about, like, gay rights and stuff. Like, totally horrible. But the dude's from Louisiana, and that's how a lot of men down here are, unfortunately. Anyways, but the guy said it was a really creepy experience, and when Brian would talk, it was like he was looking right through you. And one of the dude's friends that was a female made a serial killer comment when they were leaving and said that she was scared that he was gonna follow them, because that's how like agitated and sus he was acting. Also on August 26th, there were another vlogger couple, I guess, also doing some van life or just camping, I don't know, but they were filming and they were driving through Grand Teton Park, and they passed a white van with Florida plates, and they thought for a second like they wanted to talk to them because they were also from Florida, and they were like, oh, how cool. But it kind of looked like nobody was there, so they kept driving. They noted that it was also there when they left. And there was also, like, because this was the day that they filmed it, this video wasn't released until this couple, like, went through and edited their video and then noticed it when all this shit was in the news.
Yeah.
But when they were analyzing it, there was Gabby's shoe from, like, the body cam, her little flip-flop. It looked like there was one of those outside the van that matches. Also, the vloggers, as like they were driving up, the van door was open. Like, you know how the van door at the back of those vans is like two doors?
Yeah.
One door was open, and as you drive closer, it's closed. It's weird.
Ooh, that is weird.
And this footage is likely what led authorities to Gabby's remains. So, August 27th, Nicole, Gabby's mom, got a text from her saying, can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls. And Stan is her grandpa, that she never calls Stan. So at this point, her mom is really weirded out and thinks something might be wrong. So on August 29th, this story comes out later, but this is where it falls in the timeline. There's this girl, Miranda Baker, on TikTok who claims they picked up Brian hitchhiking at 5:30 that night in Grand Teton National Park, and he asked for a ride to Jackson, and that's where they were going to. So he got in the back of the car. He offered them $200 for the ride. That's how I know he had money to stay in that hotel room, and he lied to the cops. He said he had been camping for a few days without his fiancée, who was back at the van doing her social media page. And she mentioned going to Jackson. Oh, and later on in the car, like, the girl, Miranda, mentioned that they were going to Jackson again in conversation. And then all of a sudden, Brian flips out and wants to get out the car. He said they were, but also in the ride, he said that they were camping near Snake River. And he hiked up the river for a few days. But Miranda noted that his backpack wasn't full, and all he had was a tarp to sleep on, but he looked clean and not like he had been camping for days. So nothing of his story really made sense. So then August 30th, Nicole gets her last text from Gabby that says, no service in Yosemite, which was weird. And they noticed she stopped posting on social medias and no one had heard from her. So her mom contacted her dad down in Florida and let them know that they hadn't heard from Gabby in a while, and they'd been trying to get in contact with Brian's parents and haven't gotten a reply. So here comes September 1st. Brian secretly goes home in Gabby's van. And this very same day is when Gabby's phone is shut off or goes dead or whatever the hell. Also to note, they still have never found Gabby's phone or computer. And that makes me really mad. So September 4th, Brian got a new phone, which was confirmed by their lawyer, Stephen Bertolino. Said it wasn't a burner phone, and he left it behind when he went hiking later on in the story. According to TMZ, Brian was at AT&T with an older woman that day. But also, it's TMZ, so what does that really mean? September 6th through 8th, the Laundrie family went camping at Fort DeSoto Park. And nobody, I guess, was asking questions about where's Gabby.
Yep.
Because even Brian's sister Cassie and her kids were at this park. Her kids love Gabby. That's their Aunt Gabby. And I know they were probably asking where she was.
And Gabby lived with Brian, too.
Yes.
So it's not like they just could have been apart.
Yeah, exactly. And Cassie, her first interview, was like, no, I haven't seen Brian. No, I haven't talked to him. I hope it's just all a misunderstanding. But then it comes out that she saw him twice. She talked to him twice. So this family is just full of lies and no help. September 10th, Nicole talked to the police, and she doesn't think that they took her seriously at first. And police were called to the Laundrie house twice on this day. They weren't emergency calls. Much is redacted in the report, but it was marked as resolved. Like, nobody knows what those two calls for police were to that house, which is weird. September 11th, Nicole files a missing person report for Gabby. And it's also this day that Nicole finds out this whole time she's been trying to get in touch with the Laundries. Brian was home in Florida with Gabby's van, and then when all that was found out, the FBI got involved with the quickness. The Newport police went to interview Brian, but his parents wouldn't let him, and they had already gotten their lawyer. And, but they were able to seize Gabby's van, though, because indeed it was her van. When the police were finally able to interview Brian, he used his Fifth Amendment right, and the lawyer advised him not to talk to anyone. Only person from the Laundrie family to speak is Brian's sister Cassie, and we already went through that. Gabby's parents released an open letter to Brian's parents, pleading with them to talk and help, and basically saying, Gabby lived with you, how could you do this? Which is so true. Like, I've had many boyfriends. No, let me reword that. I've had a boyfriend live with me at my mom's house. My brother has had maybe a few girlfriends come in the house. Like, if any of them were to go missing, my mama would be like, what the fuck? Let's go help.
Yeah.
Let's go talk. Not, okay, everybody, zip your lips, and if you talk, you're dead. I don't get it. But, let's see, where was I? Oh, and then people started protesting outside of the Laundrie's home for days, maybe even weeks. A neighbor hammered a sign with Gabby's face in their yard saying, do you remember me? I used to live here. And there were reporters swarming all the time. The police put, like, cameras all around to surveil because at this point, Brian's just a person of interest. But anyways, they're supposed to be keeping an eye on Brian. Just keep that in mind. You're supposed to, yeah. So September 14th, her stepdad, Jim, flew out to Wyoming to help search her last known location in Grand Teton Park. September 15th, the police released the body cam footage from August 12th, and the public had a lot to say. As they should have. Police announced Brian as a person of interest at this point. Brian and his family still does nothing to help. The cops searched for days, and it was hard with no help from Brian because they were in multiple states. They were looking in Florida, Wyoming, and Utah at this point. This case went viral online and led to a lot of misinformation. In an interview, her dad said, "Positivity is hard. I'm trying to focus on the scenario in my head that she's just stuck somewhere and she just needs help and we got to go get her and bring her home. I know how these things sometimes end, but I'm trying not to think of that. The media has been awesome. It's been a good distraction and been keeping me busy. I couldn't sit at home and twiddle my thumbs. I'd go crazy, so it helps." I love her dad. I love her whole family. Like, they were the picture perfect family of like going through this situation. Like, they kept their heads high.
Yeah.
Even though they were being royally fucked by Brian's family. And like, they have just done great things. And we'll get into that too. So a false report of a body in the Carlton Reserve in Florida was called in. It wasn't even there, and it was completely made up and a waste of time and resources, and they had to fight things like this throughout the whole process of trying to locate the two. People noticed Brian's choice of book in their YouTube video. He was reading a book called Annihilation, which is about people who explore abandoned places where other explorers went missing. And people try to like spin off on that and like turn it into something, and I'm like, honestly, it kind of sounds like a book I would read.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't read too much into that. Still don't take away the fact that he's psycho. Okay. So speculation of ties to a double murder of a newlywed couple, Kylan Schultz and Crystal Turner. So they were found dead near their campsite in Moab, Utah. And according to the timeline, Brian was close by at that time. And one of them worked at the place where Gabby and Brian fought outside of. But police swear there's no connection. Which I kind of agree, but I do remember seeing a video about a conspiracy that made it very believable. Like, what if Brian goes out to the desert and like this Dexter thing clicks on and he kills Gabby, and then there's this other couple, and then he kills one of them, or both of them, they're both dead. Like, what if it just like turned into a rampage for a little bit, and then he was like, I need to go, and he goes home, lawyers up, and then kills himself because he was like, what the hell did I do?
I could see it.
It's just a big what if. I'm not even sure if that's what that video was intending, or if there was probably a lot more information I forgot. Probably that. Okay, so September 17th, Brian's parents contacted the FBI, and they thought they were finally going to talk, but when they got there, Brian had left 3 days prior. They said that he left to go hiking in the Carlton Reserve, which is 13 miles away from his home. It's a huge piece of land, over 24,000 acres, and they hadn't heard from him since. They were only concerned that Brian was missing and said nothing about Gabby. The cops were supposed to be keeping an eye on Brian and later said that they were disappointed with how the case was going. The Mustang Brian drove to the park was even ticketed and no one ran the plates. And then, the day before they called the cops, they went and picked the car up, didn't even try to look for their missing son while they were there, and brought it back home.
Is this anyone being charged with like obstruction of justice? I guess I never really looked at it, but they should be, right?
They're trying, I think that they're trying to do that. Because so many people have said that they could, if they knew anything, they certainly could get charged.
Yeah.
Or if they, well, yeah, you get the picture. So the cops searched the preserve for days and found nothing. Brian's parents originally said that he left on the 14th to go hiking. The lawyer said the laundries were basing the date Brian left on their recollection of certain events. Upon further communication with the FBI and confirmation of the Mustang being at the laundry residence on Wednesday, September 15th, we now believe the day Brian left to hike in the preserve was Monday, September 13th. Also, they said that the reason they thought that they still had eyes on Brian was because the police watching the house thought that when Roberta drove the Mustang home, they thought that was Brian that got out the car. They really said that they confused Roberta for Brian.
Yeah, because they look similar.
So they fucked up their timeline and thought they still had him.
Nope.
Also around this time, the FBI narrowed their search for Gabby to just the Grand Teton National Park. And then September 19th, remains were found nearby, and police said it was likely Gabby after the vlogger's video was released. Laundrie attorney's statement says, Gabby's death at such a young age was a tragedy. While Brian is currently charged with an unauthorized use of a debit card belonging to Gabby, Brian is only considered a person of interest in relation to Gabby's demise. At this time, Brian is still missing, and when he's located, we will address the pending fraud charge against him. Which is such a garbage. Well, Nicole said, Gabby's mom said that these words are garbage. But anyways, this also implies, how do you know? Anyways, I'm not going to get into that yet. We'll get there. So then we have Gabby's friend Rose, who was supposed to meet up with them in Yellowstone, but Gabby never reached out on the 29th like they had planned. She did an interview and said that Brian showed control problems in their relationship. It was getting problematic, and he thought everything she did was wrong. She said one night Brian stole her ID when Gabby went out with her friends because Brian just didn't want her to go out because of his jealousy issues. The first year of knowing Gabby, she came to stay at her house about 7 to 10 times when they got into an argument. September 20th, Laundrie family home was searched. The police and FBI agents armed with search warrants swarmed the Florida home that he shared with his parents. The FBI escorted the Laundrie's parents out of their home into a waiting van in their driveway at 10 a.m. They were in the car for about 10 minutes before going back inside. Investigators were inside the home with the family all day. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, they towed Laundrie's silver Mustang from the driveway. They also removed evidence boxes, and the search warrant indicated they were looking for Laundrie's computer. On September 22nd, the federal arrest warrant for Brian for use of unauthorized access devices related to Laundrie's activities following the death of Gabby Petito. He allegedly charged $1,000 to Gabby's credit card and still wasn't considered a suspect of Gabby's death. And then the lawyer said, it is my understanding that the arrest warrant for Brian is related to activities occurring after the death of Gabby and not related to her actual demise. But how does he know when this concrete day of death for Gabby is what I want to know. So, soon after this, the parents went to visit the lawyer in Orlando instead of searching for their missing son. September 25th, Dog the Bounty Hunter got involved, and he was confident in the beginning that he would find Brian, and he began with going to the laundry house to speak to the parents, but instead of answering the door, Roberta called 911. September 27th, Dog's daughter said that he got a lead on Brian's location, possibly in Fort DeSoto Park, so Dog got a group together and went on a search. They got a tip about the laundry's stay at the camp, and it was said 3 people were seen going into the park and only 2 left, and several witnesses said they saw them there. September 29th, Gabby Petito's family held a news conference, and her family showed tattoos designed by Gabby with sayings like "Let it be" and "Believe" that they had done in her memory. They avoided answering some questions, particularly, I can't say that word, y'all know what I mean, about Brian. Their lawyer was adamant about Andre's parents providing no help to find Gabby, so they were expecting no help from them finding Brian. September 30th, police collected some of Brian's belongings from his house for a canine search, and then it comes out that Cassie saw Brian twice since he got back to Florida. October 5th and 6th, Gabby's parents went on the Dr. Phil show, and they said that the area where Gabby was found, it looks like remnants of a campfire were next to it, with a clearing where a tent could have been pitched, and the remains were only a 5-minute walk from where the van appeared in that video. On October 7th, Brian's dad joined the search for his son, and law enforcement wanted Chris Laundrie to direct them within the Carlton Reserve to a spot where he claims Brian might be hiding. The family's attorney released a statement. Chris Laundrie is assisting law enforcement today in the search for Brian. Chris was asked to point out any favorite trails or spots that Brian may have used in the preserve. Although Chris and Roberta provided this information verbally 3 weeks ago, it is now thought that on-site assistance may be better. The preserve has been closed to the public and the laundries as well, but the parents have been cooperating since the search began. Whatever. October 12th, the autopsy results of Gabby Petito were announced at a press conference, and the coroner said that she died by strangulation with the manner as homicide. He estimated the time of death is believed to be 3 to 4 weeks from the time her body was found. So definitely when Brian was still there. And definitely Brian probably did it.
100%. Like, there's no way we're even...
Yeah, I don't even know why I said probably.
And you know what's also super aggravating? Like, now Brian's family is going to start doing, like, searches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this late in, like, over a month after she's, like, gone, and now you're going to start searching?
Yeah, exactly. Like, nothing made logical sense.
Like, it's just for show at that point. Like, are you kidding me?
I know. I feel like their attorney just directed them to...
Exactly. I saw this stupid video of the dad riding around, like, in a golf cart looking around, like, in the woods, and, like, it was the stupidest looking thing I've ever seen.
Oh my god, did you see, like, the one day he decided to cut the grass with all the protesters
Yes.
out
Oh,
there?
that was rough.
Oh my god. Damn. But they deserved it.
Yes.
So, October 17th, the Gabby Petito Foundation held their first fundraiser on Long Island, with their family hoping to turn their personal tragedy into a positive for others, and the fundraiser raised $13,700 for the foundation. Then on October 20th, the medical examiner's office in Sarasota was called to the preserve where the search for Brian Laundrie was underway. Brian's parents, along with the FBI and local authorities, found some items belonging to Brian off a trail that he frequented. Shortly after, possible human remains were found. Investigators recovered what appeared to be human remains at the preserve near a backpack and a notebook belonging to Brian. The FBI confirmed the new details at a briefing stating earlier today, investigators found what appeared to be human remains as well as personal items such as a backpack and a notebook belonging to Brian. These items were found in an area that up until recently had been underwater. Then on October 21st, Brian Laundrie's remains were confirmed. Dental records prove that remains found in Florida Park are those of Brian, according to the FBI. Laundrie family attorney released the following statement. Chris and Roberta Laundrie have been informed that the remains found yesterday in the reserve are indeed Brian's. We have no further comment at this time and we ask that you respect the Laundrie's privacy at this time. And then November 23rd, Brian's cause of death was released. An attorney for Chris and Roberta confirmed that they had been informed Brian's cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and the manner of death was a suicide. Whew!
So, like, at this point, nobody can say.
For certainty what happened, but...
Well, no, I mean, like, nobody can say that Brian didn't do it.
Oh, that too, yeah.
I mean, yeah, nobody can say for certainty. Like, don't put me on the record and say, like, 100% he did it. But, like, any logical person can see what's happening here.
I know. It just makes me so mad. Like, I had so much hope that he would be found alive, but I had a feeling that he was the type of guy that couldn't live with the consequences.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And he wouldn't survive on the land like he thought he probably could and realized he would be screwed really fast, and then he offed himself.
Yep.
But for everything that Gabby's family has been through, they have been so strong and put their pain into founding the Gabby Petito Foundation. The mission statement on their website says, Gabby went missing while on a cross-country road trip that included visits to many of our national parks. After an intensive search, it was discovered that Gabby's life was tragically cut short. The mission of the foundation is to address the needs of organizations that support locating missing persons and to provide aid to organizations that assist victims of domestic violence situations through education, awareness, and prevention strategies. We wish to turn our personal tragedy into a positive. It is our hope that Gabby's foundation will bring these important issues to the forefront of the public eye to the benefit of all of our communities. So, her parents are rock stars, and they're doing great things, but it's just unfortunate that it had to be started from this.
Yep.
It's just so sad. And it makes me... First of all, though, the notebook that he was found with. I want to know, because they said that something was written in it, and they think they can recover it. Let's find out. I want to know.
He definitely seems like the type of person to leave like some type of note or some last memoir.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Because he definitely probably had some kind of philosophy. I can't talk today. I just can't. But he probably had some kind of 2 cents he wanted the world to know. But then, again, there was the whole, like, how the hell did they find his body? Like, the day before, the parents called the FBI and were like, oh, we want to go look in this area. They show up, and within, like, the first hour or so, I think the dad located his backpack and the notebook, and then another officer was like, oh, and there's a body over here. So, like, how is that just so perfectly aligned?
Yeah.
That made no sense either.
You remember the whole theory where they thought they were keeping Brian, like, under the garden or something?
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing, like, drone footage of that.
I know, and then, like, so many people thought for sure they saw him on the Appalachian trails and all kind of shit. But, no. I truly think he went hiking in that park and stayed there, and then that's where he died.
I agree.
And it's tragic and it's sad, and I wish the cops in Moab would have done something a little differently, and maybe this wouldn't have happened, but also, I think they just didn't have the knowledge that they needed in that situation. And that's why that police department now is doing more training. So, at the end of the day, at least a lot of lessons were learned on hopefully how to better situations in other cases. Hopefully people in these law enforcement agencies pay better attention to things, and I hope that Gabby's family continues to be rock stars and help thousands of other people.
And if anyone you're in a relationship is hitting you or laying their hands on you at any point, they will 100% do it again. Don't just try to stand up for them and think that you love them so much you're going to get past it. Yes. 99% of the time, they're going to do it again.
You can also go to the Gabby Petito Foundation website and get help. They have a huge banner at the top that says, if you need help, click here. And they, like anything domestic abuse related and anything dark thoughts related. So, with all of that being said, y'all stay safe. Y'all can follow us at Southern Woke Podcast on all those social medias. Me at Marina Renee.
Or me at Kaylin Mercado.
And y'all stay woke.
Alright, stay woke, you guys.